Good morning, one and all. Welcome back to the class. Today, we'll be going to discuss regarding different scheduling algorithms and a brief introduction to scheduling algorithms. Like YSD, we have seen in the previous class that we are having different scheduling algorithms and what is the necessity of scheduling, all the things we have seen in the last class. And today we'll be going to discuss how many scheduling algorithms are there and what are the advantages of one scheduling algorithm over the other and what are the drawbacks of different scheduling algorithms we'll be going to see. And today's class we'll be going to look after first come first serve scheduling algorithm. Fine. So before going to teach regarding the scheduling algorithms, what do you mean by a scheduling? Scheduling of processes. Scheduling of processes is nothing but as I have said you before, we used to have different states, right? We used to have different states like a new state, ready state, running state. So we used to have different states. So this is the new state and this is the ready state. This is the running state. And here you will be going to have the waiting state. And finally, we will be going to have the exit state. Fine. All the processes initially we will be going to keep in the new state. And later on, some processes are going to be kept in the ready state. And from the ready state, one processor is going to give to the running state. And after its termination, we will be going to exit out that process. And if this process, any process requires an IO operation, and instead of waiting in the running state, we are making that process to wait in the waiting state. After the process has completed its IO operation, again we are admitting that process in the ready state. So this is how the state transition diagram of a process is going to be, right? Now, what do you mean by a process scheduling in the sense? A process scheduling, scheduling of process in the sense keeping the processes from the ready state and giving the processes from the ready state to the running state. Running state in the sense here we will be going to have the processor. So allocating one process to the CPU is known as scheduling. So this is how the scheduling process is going to be done. So here what the thing we have to know is the scheduling is of two different types. So first one is preemptive scheduling and the second one is non-preemptive scheduling. So these are the two different types of scheduling of a processes. So what we are saying is a process is to be scheduled. Like in what way it is going to be scheduled in the sense like there are two parts, there are two different types in which a process is going to be scheduled. The first one is preemptive scheduling and the second one is non-preemptive scheduling. Preemptive scheduling or preemptive scheduling in the sense suppose here we are having 5 processes and in the ready queue we are having 3 processes, 1, 2 and 3 processes we are having. And first we have allocated this first process to the CPU. Now the CPU is executing the process 1. Fine. So what do you mean by preemptive scheduling and what do you mean by non-preemptive scheduling in the sense? Preemptive scheduling in the sense like preemption, non-preemption. Preemption, like preemption in the sense? Preemption in the sense stopping. Stopping forcibly. And non-preemption in the sense we cannot stop forcibly. Cannot stop forcibly. Fine. So these are the two different types of scheduling. The first one is preemptive scheduling and the second one is non-preemptive scheduling. So when it comes to the preemptive scheduling, what I said you was preemptive in the sense stopping the process forcibly. Suppose for example, here process 1 is there. And now that currently that first process is executing by the CPU. So preemption in the sense, what I can do is, I can stop, now the CPU is executing the process P1. Now what I can do is, I can stop this process manually or forcibly, and I let this process to wait in the waiting state. Now the process 1 is waiting in the waiting state. Now what I'll be going to do is, I'll be going to allocate the second process to the CPU. Now second process has been allocated to the CPU. So while it is executing, so due to some reasons, like I can also stop this second process forcibly. Forcibly stopping in the sense, the process doesn't complete its work fully. Even though it has not completed its work fully, we are forcibly stopping that process and picking that process and taking that process we are keeping in the waiting state. That I mean to say. So preemption in the sense, stopping of the processes forcibly. Like when, what are the different chances in order to stop a process? The first thing is, like that maybe that process is going to take much amount of time, like much time it is going to take. And the second one is, other process is having the highest priority, maybe some of the reason it is going to have. So that's the reason what we are going to do is, we are going to stop the process forcibly, and we are going to allocate the CPU to another process. That is preemption. Preemption in the sense, we can stop the processes forcibly. When it comes to non-preemption in the sense, like suppose here we are going to have a process P2. Here suppose we are going to have this process P3. This process P3 is a non-preemptive process. So what I have to do is, I have to allocate this mm, process P3 to the CPU, even though some other process is having the highest priority. I'll not let this process stop in the middle until unless it completes the task fully and exit out of the session. So it is its will and wish to exit out of the session. If it wants to wait for any IO, it will be going to wait in the waiting state. But we are not doing anything forcibly. That is the non-preemption. So these are the two different types of scheduling. Scheduling means, like preemption in the sense, like preemption in the sense, we can stop the processes forcibly. So why we need to stop the process in the sense, maybe the other process is going to have the highest priority. That may be one of the reason. And the second reason is, maybe the process which is executing by the CPU is going to take much amount of time, so that all the processes needs to wait. Maybe that is also one of the reason. So based on any of the reason, we can stop the process forcibly. Those process we call it as an preemptive processes. So non-preemption in the sense, we can't stop the process in the middle until unless it completes its total execution by the CPU. So these are the two different types of scheduling process. Fine. So here there are mainly 6 different scheduling algorithms. Like here we will be going to have mainly 6 different scheduling algorithms. So today we will be going to see this first come first serve scheduling algorithms. So I'll be going to give just a brief introduction regarding the scheduling algorithms. Fine. So what I have said you is, we need to schedule the processes. So based on different criteria, we have to schedule the processes. Scheduling is very important in order to have the high efficiency of the processor. So scheduling is to be needed. So, what are the different scheduling algorithms we are having in the sense? The first and the easiest one is, it is very easy to implement. This is the first come, first serve scheduling algorithm. As the name itself indicates, first come, first serve. When it entered into the ready queue first, so this is the ready queue and this is the CPU. So when it enters into the X process, as soon as it entered into the ready queue, that process we are going to allocate to the CPU as the first come. Next, X after some Y process has been entered into the ready queue. After completion of X process, we will be going to give chance to the Y process, and after completion of Y process, we'll be going to give chance to the Z process. So based on the arrival time, like based on the arrival time. Suppose for example, if you have taken some banking system, so when you are going to enter into a bank, like here you will be going to have the manager sitting over here, and here the people are going to stand over here. Like here we follow the first come first serve policy. Who comes first will be going to talk to the manager first. Who comes second, he will be in the second position. In the same manner, which process enters into the ready queue first, that process will be giving to the CPU in order to do the execution. So that is the first come first serve. It is a very easy one, and it is having some drawback. That convoy effect we will be going to face. What is that convoy effect? We will be going to discuss in the when we are going to deal with this in detail, FCFS. Next one is shortest job first. Shortest job first in the sense, suppose you are having processes like P1, P2 and P3. Fine. So the P1 burst time is 8 milliseconds, P2 burst time is 9 milliseconds, and P3 burst time is 2 milliseconds. And you may be asking again, what do you mean by burst time? Burst time is nothing but how much amount of time this process P1 needs in order to complete its task. That we call it as a burst time. Fine. In order to complete the task of P1, it needs 8 milliseconds of time. In order to complete a P2 task, it needs 9 milliseconds of time. In order to complete the task P3, it needs 2 milliseconds of time. So these are the burst times. We call it as a burst times. That means the time required for a process to complete. Here, when we are talking regarding with the shortest job first, so the name itself indicates shortest job first. I mean to say that the process which is having a shortest time is going to be allocated to the processor first. Here what we have done in first come first serve, which process enters into the ready queue, that process is going to be allocated to the CPU. So that is the basic concept of first come first serve algorithm. But when it comes to the shortest job first, like what we will be going to see is which process enters, like which is process is having the shortest burst time, that process is going to be allocated to the CPU for its processing. So as P3 is having only 2 milliseconds, so this process is first allocated to the processor, and next the P1 process is having 8 milliseconds, so it is allocated second, and lastly a P2 process is having 9 milliseconds, it will be going to allocate in the third phase. So this is how shortest job first is going to be done. And next one is this is all regarding the shortest job first, and here we have discussed this one, which is regarding the FCFS. Fine. And the next one what we'll be going to see is priority. So when we are going to see the priority scheduling, and suppose we are having the processes P1, P2, P3, and suppose take the same example, the burst time is 8, the burst time is 9, and the burst time is 2 milliseconds. So along with the burst times, we have given the priority to the processes. So what is the necessity of priority? Priority is given to the processes, like suppose if you are going to take when you are preparing for your exams, suppose you people are preparing for your exams, so what you people will do, you people will start with the toughest subject, and you will be going to give much priority to that subject. Why? Because you are weak in that subject, and you want to concentrate much on that subject, so you are giving highest priority. You will be keeping number of hours more for that particular subject. Why? Because you are very weak in that subject. So how we are giving priority? As you are not aware of that subject, you are giving highest priority to that subject. Some people will choose the easy subject. Why? Because as it will complete faster, they'll be going to give much priority to that particular subject. So priorities will be based on the process. So, but why we are going to give priority, in the sense like in order to execute it first, we'll be going to give the priorities. Suppose here P1 8 milliseconds, P2 9 milliseconds, but this 9 milliseconds I am giving the priority 1, 8 milliseconds I am giving the priority 3, 2 milliseconds I am giving the priority 2. So first priority, second priority and third priority. So this priority is based on the processes. Maybe this ninth process, so after completion of this ninth process, many processes has depend on this P2 process. So some n number of processes has dependent on P2 process. If this P2 process completes only, that n number of process will get complete. So what we'll be going to do? We are giving highest priority to this P2 process. So this P2 process is going to give highest priority, like that. So based on the condition and based on the circumstances, we'll be going to give priority to the processes. So priorities are nothing but giving much importance, allowing that process to be done first, even though the burst time is high. Actually, when the burst time is high, in the sense CPU will be allocated to that particular process for a large amount of time, even though that is there, but we are going to give priority by means of like importance, like what we call also importance. So this is how priority scheduling. Round robin scheduling. So round robin scheduling, in the sense like suppose here P1 and P2 and P3 processes are there. So here 4, here 2 and 6 milliseconds of time. So in round robin, we'll be going to make use of time slice. So time slice or time quantum. So time quantum, in the sense we are giving equal importance to each and every process. No highest priority. We don't consider which job has entered first. We don't consider which job is going to have the shortest burst time, and we don't consider which job is having the highest priority. We'll be going to treat all the processes equally. So that we call it as a round robin scheduling. Here in this round robin scheduling, we'll be going to keep a time slice or time quantum of 2 milliseconds. What is this time quantum? In the sense, each and every process has to execute only 2 minutes in the processor. After completing of 2 minutes, it has to exit out of the processor and it has to give chance to the next processor. So here CPU is there. So this first process will allocate as the time quantum is 2. So it executes for 2 minutes. That means how much time remaining? 4 minutes, 4 milliseconds left. Next, the process P2 will enter. It will execute for 2 milliseconds. As the 2 milliseconds has been completed, we'll be going to remove this process P2 from the queue. And next process P3 will enter into the CPU. It executes for 2 milliseconds, and how much time left? Only 2 milliseconds left. So this is of one turn. So this is one turn. Now second turn, again process P1 will enter and it will execute for 2 more minutes, and how much time is left? Here process P1 is entering. It executes for 2 minutes, and process P2 already completed its task. So we need not re-enter the process P2 again, and here we'll be going to have this process P3. Process P3 will enter and executes for 2 milliseconds of time. So the total P3 is also completed. After P1, this P3 will come and it will complete. And when it comes to the third phase, only P1 is left. P2 has completed and we have removed. P3 has completed and we have removed. Now only P1 will enter and it completes its 2 milliseconds of time. So this is the way we'll be going to give equal importance to each and every process. We are not considering like which process to be having the highest priority, or which process is having the least burst time, or which process has entered the first in the ready queue. We are not at all considering all the things, and we are giving equal importance to each and every process. So that is the priority round robin scheduling. And when it comes to this, all comes to the round robin scheduling. Fine. and next one is the multi-level queue scheduling. So multi-level queue scheduling, in the sense, here what you will be going to do in this multi-level queue scheduling, in the sense, here we are having this ready state, right, or ready queue. So this ready queue is divided into number of queues. So Q1, Q2 and Q3. So multi-level queue scheduling, in the sense, previously we used to have only a ready queue, but what we are going to do in multi-level queue scheduling, in the sense, we are making, or we are dividing this ready queue into number of queues. And how we are going to divide that into number of queues, and how we are going to place the process, in the sense, similar characteristics process are placed in one queue. So X similarities are placed in Q1, Y similarity processes are placed in Q2, and Z similarity processes are placed in Q3. So based on the characteristics, or based on the task to be done by the processes, what we are going to do is, we are going to divide the processes into a number of queues, and each queue is scheduled by independently. So this is the multi-level queue scheduling. When we are going to discuss in detail with an example of each and every algorithm, we'll be going to discuss what are the advantages and disadvantages of each algorithm. And today in this class, we'll be going to concentrate on the first come first serve algorithm. We'll be going to look after this first come first serve algorithm. Fine. So as I have said you before, CPU scheduling, the first part is preemptive scheduling, and the second part is non-preemptive scheduling. Preemptive, in the sense, we forcibly stopping the process. Non-preemptive, in the sense, we cannot stop the process. We cannot stop process in the middle. So this is the CPU scheduling, preemptive scheduling and non-preemptive scheduling. See, when you have seen over here, so preemptive scheduling is the mostly assigned with their priorities. It is important to run a task with higher priority before any other lower priority. Even if the lower priority task is running, the lower priority task holds for some time and resumes when the higher priority task finishes its execution. So that means, like, if two processes are there, P1 and P2, if P1, suppose with the highest, we have to give priorities to the highest priorities task. Suppose as of now only process P1 is there, and this process P1 has given the CPU. When this process is in the process, is executing, process P2 came, which is of highest priority. So what we are going to do is, we'll be going to stop this process P1, and we are going to allocate the process P2 to the CPU. Why? Because the process P2 is having the highest priority. So that is preemptive. Preemptive, in the sense, stopping in the middle and allocating the process to allocating the processor, allocating the CPU to another process, that is the preemptive scheduling. So when it comes to the non-preemptive scheduling, in this method, the CPU has been allocated to a specific process. Suppose the CPU, if the CPU has allocated to process P1, specific process, the process that keeps the CPU busy will release the CPU either by switching context or terminating. So non-preemptive, in the sense, when we are going to allocate any particular process, that is, for example, process P1 to the CPU, it has to exit by itself. We can't forcibly stop that process to come out of the CPU and to keep wait in the waiting state. So that is the preemptive and non-preemptive scheduling. So when scheduling is preemptive or non-preemptive, like at what conditions the scheduling may be preemptive or non-preemptive. So the first, a process switch from running state to the waiting state. So when a process will switch from running state to waiting state, if it needs an IO device, it is going to switch from running state to waiting state. And second one is a process switch from running state to waiting state. So a process switches from running state to the ready state. So this is the ready state, and a process switches from running state to the ready state. Here is this is the first method, here is the second option. And the third one is process switches from waiting state to the ready state. Here the process is going to switch from waiting state to the ready state. This is the third case. And a process finished its execution. Here is the exit state. So if a process finished its execution, it is going to come out of the process. So these are the four cases. So when out of these four cases, which are preemptive and which are non-preemptive, in the sense, the cases 1, the case 1 and the case 4 are non-preemptive. So case 1 and case 4, the scheduling is non-preemptive. So when a process completes its task, we can't force the process to be there. So when it completes, it automatically exits. And when it case 1, when the process is running, if it wants to wait for an IO, so this is also, we can't forcibly make the stop process to wait in the running state only. We'll be going to keep the processes in the waiting state. So these two things are non-preemptive. The things which are preemptive, in the sense, process we can take out from running state to the ready state and waiting state to the ready state. So these are the two different scheduling types, preemption and the non-preemption. And now we'll be going to discuss regarding the first come first serve scheduling algorithm. So this is the very simplest and easy one. This is very simple and easy to implement. Fine, very much easy, and no need to pay much of the attention. So here we'll be going to have the processor. Here we'll be going to have the processor. Here we'll be going to have a queue in the sense, first come first serve queue. Here process P1 arrived, next process P3 arrived, next process P6 arrived, next process P2 arrived. So this is the FCFS queue. So first which process came, that process is going to be allocated to the CPU. After completing its task, next we'll be going to allocate process 3 to the CPU. After completion of process 3, we'll be going to allocate process 6. After completion of process 6, and then we'll be going to allocate the process 2. This is very simple and easy to implement. So first come first serve, the full form is first come first serve, and in short we call it as an FCFS. It is the easiest and most simple scheduling algorithm. Here the process request for the CPU gets the CPU allocation first. This method can be managed with a FIFO queue. So this we call it as a FIFO queue. So first in first out queue. In this queue, all the processes will enter. Which process enters first, that is going to be allocated to the processor first. As the process enters the ready queue, like ready queue will be there now. Here we will be going to have the ready queue. So when a process enters the ready queue, suppose a P1 process enters the ready queue. So as soon as it enters the ready queue, at the end of this P1 process, we will be going to attach the process control block, as we have already seen. For each and every process, at the end, a process control block is going to be attached. So what is a process control block, in the sense, the details regarding the process is going to be stored in the process control block. What are all the details, in the sense, what is the process ID, process number, process state, at what is the starting address of this process, what is the ending address of this process. All the things are going to be stored in the process control block. So a PCB is going to be linked at the tail of the queue. So when CPU becomes free, it should be assigned to the process at the beginning of the queue. This is how we will be going to do with the first come first serve scheduling algorithm. So what are the different characteristics of a first come first serve scheduling algorithm? This first come first serve scheduling algorithm is of non-preemptive and preemptive. Both the ways it is going to work. So we can forcibly stop the process from the CPU, and we cannot stop the process. In both ways it is going to work. Jobs are always executed on the first come first serve basis. So which job comes first, it will be executed first. It is very easy to implement, and it is very easy to use, and it is going to be making use of first come first out queue. The performance is poor. Why the performance is poor, later we'll be going to see at the end. After seeing an example, you yourself can say why the performance is very less when we are going to see this first come first serve algorithm. So let us see an example. Let us see an example over here. So here there are three processes. So this is an example program. So here there are three processes, four processes, one P01, P1, P2 and P3. Arrival time in the sense at what time it entered into the ready queue. Arrival time in the sense at what time it enters into the ready queue. So that time we call it as an arrival time. Execution time we also call it as an burst time. Burst time or execution time. So execution time in the sense like burst time, in order to complete the process P1, it needs 5 milliseconds of time. That we call it as a burst time. And the service time is the time provided for the processes in order to keep the services. So this is the service time. So this we call it as a NAT chart. Fine. This we call it as a NAT chart. If you are going to do this, if you are going to prepare the chart for this process, you will be going to solve the processes very much easily. So here in this problem, they are telling us to find the waiting time. To find the waiting time of each and every process. To find the waiting times of all the processes they are telling to find. So first of all, the first come first serve algorithm means which process arrives first. For that process we are going to give the CPU. So you have to prepare this after seeing the table. You have to prepare this NAT chart. So at 0th millisecond, at 0 you'll be going to start from 0, right? At 0th second, which process arrived? At 0th second, which process arrived? So P0 process arrived. So we will be going to give chance to the P0 process. So in order to complete the P0 task, how much time it is in need of? It is in need of 5 milliseconds of time. So at 0 at the time, P0 process has entered into the queue. We have given a CPU to this P0 process, and how much time it has executed? It executed for 5 milliseconds of time. So at 5 milliseconds of time, any process is there in the queue, ready queue. So here we are going to have the ready queue. So in the ready queue, we are having the processes 0, 1, 2, 3. These are the three processes. At the 0th millisecond, 0 process came. How much time it has executed? Till 5 milliseconds. At 5 milliseconds, any process entered? Yeah. Already 3 processes have been entered before the 5 milliseconds. At 1 millisecond, process P1 entered. At 2 milliseconds, process P2 entered. At 3 millisecond, process P3 entered. So which process we have to consider in the sense? At 1 millisecond. Why? Because this is the second process enters into the ready queue. So now at 5 milliseconds, like already 3 processes are there in the ready queue. Which process to give priority in the sense? The first process we have to give the importance. So we'll be going to give importance to the P1 process. So in order to complete the P1 process, how much time it need? 3 milliseconds of time it need. Already process P0 took how many milliseconds of time? 5 milliseconds of time already completed, and in order to complete the task of P1 it needs how much time? 3 milliseconds. Totally how much time? 5 plus 3, which is going to be 8 milliseconds of time. So process P1, at what time the process P1 completed its task in the sense? It is the addition of process P0 plus process P1. The time which we have came is, it is the completion time of process P1. At 8 milliseconds, which process is there in the queue? So this process process P0 has completed. process P1 has completed. Which process is there in the next? P2. P2 came at 8 milliseconds. At 8 milliseconds, we have given chance to the P2 process. P2 process executed for how much amount of time? 8 milliseconds. Already P1 process done, P2 process done. So both the P1 plus P2 is 8 milliseconds. And again, in order to complete the process P2, how much time it needs in need of? 8 milliseconds. Total time is 8 plus 8, which is of 16 milliseconds. So the completion time of P2 is 16 milliseconds. Why? Because even though it needs 8 milliseconds of time, how much time it has been waited for? It has been waited for 8 milliseconds. So 8 plus 8, total time is 16 milliseconds. And next at 16 milliseconds, so P2 also completed. At 16 milliseconds, which process entered? P3 process has entered. So P3 process has entered. And how much time it is in need of? P3 processor needs 6 milliseconds of time. So how much time it has waited? 16 milliseconds of time it waited, and it need 6 milliseconds of time. So the total time of completion of P3 is 22 milliseconds of time. So this is how you have to prepare the NAT chart. Fine. So another example also we'll be going to see. So just try to understand. So at 0th millisecond process P0 enters. How much time in order to complete? In the sense 5 milliseconds of time. Till 5 milliseconds of time P1 is in waiting state. At 5 milliseconds P1 got the turn. So P1 needs how much time? 8 milliseconds time. And how much time it has been waited? P1 needs 3 milliseconds of time. How much time it has been waited? 5 milliseconds. Total time is 8 milliseconds. Like that you have to arrange the NAT chart so that you will be going to know the waiting times. So now they have told us to calculate the waiting time. What is the waiting time formula is, if they have given the service time, the waiting time formula is service time minus arrival time. Fine. Waiting time formula is service time minus arrival time if they have given the service time. So what is the service time of P0? 0. 0 minus 0. So it is 0. What is the service time of P1? Service time of P1 is 5 and arrival time of P1 is 1. 5 minus 1, that is 4. And P2 service time is 8 and the arrival time of P2 is 2. 8 minus 2, that is equals to 6. And the service time of P3 is 16. Arrival time of P3 is 3. So 16 minus 3, that is equals to 13. So this is how you will be going to do the waiting times. You have to calculate the waiting times for each and every process. This is the process you have to calculate the waiting times. Fine. Hope it is clear. So what are the advantages of this first come first serve? The basic major advantage is it is easy to understand. And the disadvantage of this is the process with less execution time. Suppose here P1 is there, P2 is there, some 10 process, P10 process is there. So P10 process need 1 millisecond of time. But how much time it has to wait? Until the 9 processes completed, then only we will be going to give chance for the P10 process. So this much time it has to wait. So this we call it as an convoy effect. Convoy effect. So the process will be keep on waiting. So that is not at all going to be done. So that is how we will be going to say that is the convoy effect. So it favors the CPU. Here first process will get the CPU first, other process can get the CPU only the current process has completed its task. Now the first process has large burst time. Suppose this process has 100 milliseconds of time. So but P10 process needs 1 millisecond of time. But how much time it is waiting? It is waiting all this time in order to complete its 1 millisecond of time. So this is the major drawback you will be going to find in the first come first serve algorithm. So the drawback of this first come first serve algorithm is it suffers with convoy effect. So here this is the more waiting time is going to be done for the processes which is having the less burst time. And this algorithm is troublesome for time sharing systems, and where it is important that each user get a share of CPU time at regular intervals. So this is very troublesome in order to implement this time sharing systems. So that is very much difficult for the time sharing systems to do it. Fine. So again we'll be going to see another example of this first come first serve scheduling algorithm. So this is an example of first come first serve scheduling algorithm. In this we are telling to calculate the CT. CT in the sense completion time, TAT in the sense turn around time, WT in the sense waiting time, and RT in the sense response time. So we'll be going to calculate all these things by taking the first come first serve scheduling algorithm. So when we are going to have this table, first what we have to do is we have to prepare a NAT chart. So we have to prepare a chart. So we have to prepare a chart. Fine. So as we have to see the arrival times, like first come first serve in the sense which process entered first, that will be giving the highest priority. So we'll be going to start at 0 millisecond. Fine. We'll be going to start at 0 millisecond. At 0 millisecond, how many processes are there? P1, P2, P3, P4 and P5, fine. At 0 millisecond, which process entered? So at 0 millisecond, P2 process has entered at 0 millisecond. So we have to write P2 process entered at 0 millisecond. And how much time it has been executed? Burst time in the sense the time in order to complete the process P2 is 1 millisecond. So 0 to 1 millisecond, P2 has been executed. Fine. So at 1 millisecond, any process has been arrived? No, no other process has been arrived at 1 millisecond. So another process arrived at which time? So here the process P1 and P3 arrived at 2 milliseconds, right? So both have been arrived at 2 milliseconds, but out of P1 and P3, which process entered first? P1 entered first. So we have to give priority to the P1 process. So at 1 millisecond, no other process has been entered. And at 2 milliseconds, which process entered? P1 process has been entered. So here we'll be going to have the ideal state of the process. Here the process is going to be ideal. Why? Because at 1 millisecond, no process has entered into the system. At 2 milliseconds, P1 and P3 both have entered, but which entered first in the sense? P1 has entered first. So P1 has entered first. So this is the P1 has entered first. How much time it is in need of? It needs 2 milliseconds to complete its process. So already 2 milliseconds it has been waited, and it need another 2 milliseconds in order to complete its process. Totally the completion time of P1 process is 4 milliseconds, fine. At 4 milliseconds, which process entered? At 4 milliseconds, P5 process entered. But before that 4 milliseconds only, like we have 2 milliseconds at P3 process, 3 milliseconds at P4 process. So as there is P1 we have to consider P3 now. So now we'll be going to consider the P3 process. At 4 milliseconds, P3 process will enters into the queue. P3 process enters into the queue. So what is the burst time of P3? It is of 3 milliseconds. And how much time it has been waited? 4 milliseconds it has been waited, and the burst time of P3 is 3 milliseconds. Totally the completion time of P3 is 7 milliseconds. At 7 milliseconds, which process is waiting in the ready queue? This P5 process is waiting in the P3 process is going to be waiting in the ready queue. Why? Because P3 and P4 and P5. So at 7 milliseconds here, P1 entered, P2 entered, P3 entered. Next, which process is there? P3 process is there. P3 process enters at 7 milliseconds. Here we will be going to make P3 process enters at 7 milliseconds. And what is the burst time of this uh, P4 process, sorry. Here P4 process enters at 7 milliseconds. And what is the burst time of this P4 process? 5 milliseconds. Why? Because it needs 5 milliseconds in order to complete its task. Fine. So totally how many milliseconds it needs to complete? 12 milliseconds it needs to complete its task. So after this 12 milliseconds, which process is there in the queue? So process P5 is there in the queue. Now process P5 will enter into the queue at 12 milliseconds. Fine. So when process P5 is entering into the ready queue, so what it is going to do is, like it will be going to check whether any other process is still waiting in the ready queue. Here, as we have seen, no other process is waiting in the ready queue. So last one is the P5 process. So P5 process needs how much time to complete its task? 4 milliseconds. So 12 milliseconds plus 4 milliseconds. P5 will complete its task at 16 milliseconds. So 7 milliseconds P4 it came plus 5 milliseconds. So totally 12 milliseconds. At 12 milliseconds, P5 process will come and it executes for 4 milliseconds. So then the total P5 will complete at 6 milliseconds. So this is how you have to prepare the NAT chart. Once again, I am repeating you at 0th millisecond. So at 0th millisecond, which process came? So process P2 came. So process P2 executed for how much time? It has been executed for 1 millisecond of time. Okay, that's fine. At 1 millisecond, we have to check any process came into the queue or not. No other process has arrived. So from when, at what time they have arrived? At 2 milliseconds, P1 and P3 has arrived. At 2 milliseconds, P1 and P3 has arrived. So from 1 millisecond to 2 millisecond, the CPU is in ideal state. So at 2 millisecond, P1 and P3 both have arrived. But which arrived first? P1 arrived first. So we are giving P1 the priority. How much time it is in need of? 2 milliseconds. Already it have waited for 2 minutes and the processor time execution burst time is 2 minutes. 2 plus 2, 4 milliseconds it has been waited. We have to check at 4 milliseconds which process came. 4 milliseconds process P5 came, but before the 4 milliseconds process P1 is there, P3 is there and P4 is there. So we will be going to consider process P3. So at 4 milliseconds process 3 will enter into the CPU. So, and how much time it is in need of? 3 milliseconds. 4 plus 3 is 7 milliseconds is the completion time of P3. At 7 milliseconds, what are the processes which are already there? P4 and P5 process are there in the ready queue. So, we will be going to give chance to the P4 process. So, P4 process take the chance and it executes for 3 milliseconds. It has waited for 7 milliseconds and it executes for 3 milliseconds. Totally 12 milliseconds of time is the completion time of process P4. At 12 milliseconds, process P5 enters. It needs 4 milliseconds of time in order to complete its task. Already it has waited 12 minutes and the completion time of process P5 is 4 minutes. 12 plus 5 is the 16 minutes, which is going to have the completion time of the process P5. Now we have to calculate the completion time of each and every process. So P1 completion time is, where is the process P1? P1. What is the completion time of P1 process? At 4 milliseconds, P1 has completed its task. And what is the completion time of P2? At 1 millisecond, P2 has completed its task. What is the completion time of P3? At 7 milliseconds, the P3 has completed. And what is the completion time of P4? At 12 milliseconds, it has completed. And finally, the P5 completes at 16 milliseconds of time. So completion time in the sense like how much time it took in order to complete that process, we will be going to call it as the completion time. Next you will be going to find out the turnaround time. turnaround time. The formula of turnaround time is completion time minus arrival time. So when we have seen the diagram, here is the new state, here is the ready state, here is the running state, that means CPU state, here is the exit state, and here we'll be going to have the waiting state. So these are the different states we are going to have, right? So turnaround time in the sense this arrival time minus completion time minus, so completed and exited out na, and where it has been arrived, at what time it has been arrived, so that time we'll be going to take. So this time we call it as a turnaround time. Turnaround time is equals to completion time minus arrival time. We call it as a turnaround time. So here you will be going to calculate the turnaround time. So turnaround time of process P1, completion time is 4, burst time, arrival time is 2. 4 minus 2 means 2 is the turnaround time. Here the completion time is 1, arrival time is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1, which is the turnaround time of process P1, P2, and here the completion time is 7 and the arrival time is 2. So here 5 is the 7 minus 2, which is 5, that is the here I am going to writing completion time minus arrival time, which is going to give the turnaround time. Fine. Here you will be going to have the completion time as 12, arrival time as 3. So here the turnaround time is 9. Here the completion time is 16 and the arrival time we will be going to have is 4. So here the turnaround time is 12. So this is how you will be going to calculate the turnaround timings. Fine. So when we are going to calculate the waiting time, the formula of waiting time is equals to turnaround time minus burst time. So the formula for waiting time is equals to turnaround time minus burst time. So turnaround time is 2, burst time is 2. 2 minus 2 waiting time is 0. 1 minus 1 waiting time is 0. And 5 minus 3 waiting time is 2. Here 9 minus 4 the waiting time is 4. And finally 12 minus 4 the waiting time is 8. So this is the formula in order to calculate the waiting times. Fine. Now the major thing is response time. Response time in the sense, response time means at what time the processor gets first the CPU. Suppose here P2 response time in the sense, here at what time we have been given the CPU to this process P2 at 0 milliseconds. So this response time is equals at what time we allocated. So at what time we allocate CPU minus arrival time. Fine. For process P1, at what time we allocated? At 2 milliseconds we have given the processor to the process P1. So 2 minus arrival time is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Fine. 2 minus 2 we call it as a 0. And process P2 at what time we have given the CPU? At 0th millisecond. Minus what is the arrival time of process P2? 0. So the response time is 0. And next for process P3, at what time we have given the CPU? At 4 milliseconds. Minus what is the arrival time of P3? It is 2 milliseconds. So 4 minus 2 is equals to 2. At what time we have allocated a processor for the P4? At 7 milliseconds. Minus what is the arrival time is? 7 minus 3. Fine. So here we will be going to have 4. At what time we have allocated CPU to this P5 process? At 12 milliseconds. And how much, what is the arrival time? 12 minus 4. This is going to be 8. So this is the response time. So here you have to note that for note that for non-preemption in FCFS, the waiting times and response times are equal. So this is the thing you have to keep in mind. Fine. So in non-preemption, in FCFS, waiting times and response times are equal. See here, waiting times and response times of this process are going to be equal. So this is the way in order to calculate the burst times, in order to calculate the completion time, turnaround time, waiting time and the response time. So this is how the first come first serve scheduling algorithm is going to be done. So as I have said you, it is a very easy algorithm, but it is going to suffer with what I said it is going to suffer with convey effect. So this is the convey effect. So when we are going to have this convey effect, so convey effect in the sense like we are giving a priority to the first process, first come first process. So the process which is having a least burst time has to wait for much more amount of time. So that is called the convey effect. In order to overcome this problem, we have gone for SJF, shortest job first. That we will be going to see in the next class. Fine. So that's all for today, students. I hope you have understood the concept of first come first serve. Like you just take a small example by yourself and try to solve it and try to calculate the completion time, waiting time, turnaround time and response time for all the processes. And still if you are going to have any doubts, I'll be going to clarify your doubts soon as possible. Fine. Thank you all students. Have a nice day.